Hello and welcome to the next part of the Xcam tutorial video. And this part is again a continuation of the last part because there are many other nice functions available in connection with the favorites. So here we go. Okay, so in the last video tutorial part we have created a new favorite and we have saved some different object types for that favorite. And we have learned the different possibilities to add object types to the favorite. And one of these possibilities was to add all the object types from an object selection. And maybe you remember the workflow. So first we need, of course, a project. And then we have to show the favorite list and press this button to create a new favorite and double left click to load that favorite, and then you can add all the object types from this selection, for example, by pressing F. But there is also a possibility to create immediately a new favorite from an object selection. So I go back here to the overview, and then if you have an object selection active, then press this button, create a new favorite. And because a selection is active, the Xcam knows that you want to create a new favorite with all the object types from the current active selection. And if I press this button, and then the Xcam asks me if I want to create a new favorite from the selection. And then the new favorite is saved and all the object types also. There is a special favorite available, and this special favorite is always the first favorite here in the overview list, and that's a default favorite. And this favorite list is a dynamic favorite, and that means at the beginning this favorite is empty. Okay, I have no project loaded, so I can create a new project and now open that default favorite, and you can see this favorite is at the beginning always empty, and this default favorite will save all the different object types automatically in the background. And that means as soon as you copy some objects, the Xcam will automatically save each object type into that default favorite. So if I open this default favorite now, then you can find there all the different object types you have used so far. And as soon as you create a new project, then this default favorite is again empty. And if you load a project, then this default favorite is automatically filled up with all the different object types from that project. So double left click this favorite, and here you can find now all the object types you have used within your project. And that's also sometimes useful. And if you want, you can create a new favorite from this default favorite, because this default favorite is a kind of a temporary favorite. So simply press this button, create a new favorite, and remember, if you have the overview list visible and you click this button, then you create a new empty favorite. But if you have loaded the default favorite and press this button, then you can create a new favorite from the default favorite. So from default. And this favorite is now every time and on every map available. If you load another favorite than the default favorite, so maybe this one, then this button has another functionality. And that means hit the button and you will see this dialog. And with this function you can create an object collection. And that means you can create each object for one time, side by side, in one or more object rows. So you have a kind of a 3D overview of all the objects within the favorite. And here you have some options to define the output. So that means the first value is the orientation of the object collection, and the second one is the count of the rows, object rows, and the next one is the space between each object, and then we have the space between each object row, and the last value is to set the objects on ASL height, but with 0 the ASL function is disabled. And I think we can try to create the object collection with these settings. So hit OK, and then it looks like this. So we have 3 different object rows, and between each object there's a little bit space, and also space between each object row. And yeah, you know, that's a kind of an 3D overview of all objects from the favorite. With the favorites, there are 2 special functions available. And the first one is an advanced replace function, and the second one is the possibility to create a dynamic object pool. And what that means I will show you now. So you already know the simple replace function. So for example, select any object type from the library list and then set the focus to any saved object, and in this situation press the key R, and then this object is replaced. Simple but useful. But with the replace function in connection with the favorite list, you have the possibility to replace all objects from one object selection. And the first step is of course to create an object selection. Press G, and now load the favorite you want to use for this function. So I think I will load the trees, and then press this button R, and this button enables the replace function. So if you hit the button, then you will get a small message, replace mode enabled, and now you can simply switch between all the different object types within the favorite, and then immediately all the objects will be replaced. So it takes some seconds, but it works. And of course you can switch every time to another favorite list, so maybe we try the lamps. So the replace function is still active, but if you don't like the result and you want to switch back to the original objects, then press and hold down the left shift key and press E, and then you will get back the old version. And to disable the replace function again, hit the button again. Or if you press the spacebar, the replace function is automatically disabled. Well, So we can also try this. Select one object type, then press return to select only this type. Okay. Then I will switch back to the trees, turn on the replace function, and now I try to find another object. It's cool. Shift E to set all the objects back to the original version. It's also possible to use this replace function in connection with an object collection. That means first I have to create the collection, and I think I will try other objects, so maybe the stones, and then press this button. I have changed the settings already here. Then create the stones. Oh, this is really a very nice stone. Okay, and then create the selection, G, and then simply set the focus to any object here from the collection, and then press R. So basically it's the same functionality, the same function, but it works in a different way. If you want to replace all objects of a wall, for example, then that's a little bit different, because in this situation you have to find first an object with the same bounding box size, and that's not easy, because otherwise the objects then no longer fit together and you have no possibility to scale the objects. So that's basically not possible. But we can start a try, and first I will create an object collection from the walls favorite. And here you can see all the objects have a different object size. And we can try, for example, this object type, press R. It's okay. But if I try this object type, then here you can see what I mean. It's not okay. That's also a nice wall. But I think you know what you have to do in this situation. And just a side note, at this point, please don't forget to delete the objects from an object collection again, because otherwise if you export your project, then these objects are also part of the export file, and I think you don't want this. So it's simple, because each object from an object collection is saved into one object group. Press G, press the delete key, and all the objects are deleted. Okay, and now we go on with the possibility to create a dynamic object pool. And only for this function it makes already sense to create a favorite list. And now I will give you a simple example that you can see how it works. So first I will switch back to the favorite trees. And normally if you work with a single brush, then you select any object type from the favorite list, and then you press B to start the brush, and then you can start to place some objects. And if you want to select another object type, please don't move the mouse at this point, and then press the arrow keys up and down, and then you can go on with your work. Don't move the mouse, press arrow keys, and it's easy and nice, but in my opinion that's not really user friendly, especially if you work with vegetation. So I think we can cancel this brush station at this point by pressing the spacebar. And now I will show you the possibility to use a dynamic object pool. And the first step is to define all the different object types you want to use with the dynamic object pool. So simply select any object type here from the library list and then press this plus button. And then this object type is part of the dynamic object pool. And then you can go on with the next object type, press a button, and maybe another object type, press a button. And then you have defined 3 different object types for the dynamic object pool. And to know which object types are part of the dynamic object pool, the respective list entries are marked green, so as you can see here. And now it's easy. Press the key B to start the brush. And in this situation the XCAM knows that you only want to use the object types from the dynamic object pool. And every time you left click the mouse, then you will get a randomized object type from the object pool. And that's the main idea behind that function. And this function is of course also working with multibrush. So select any object type from the object pool and then press O to start the multibrush. Maybe set the right object distance, 5 meters, I think it's okay, and then create some objects. And as you can see, that's totally dynamically based on the objects from the dynamic object pool. But that's not all, because you can also define a probability for each object type within the dynamic object pool. So, and I have created a new object pool here with these 4 different object types. This one, and these object types. And now I press O to start the multibrush. And it looks okay. It looks nice. But if you change the probability between the objects, then you get a totally different result. And that's easy. Select the object type you want to change, maybe in this object type, and then press the plus button again. And every time you press this button, you increase the count for this object. And you get a message here on the top of the screen that the count is now 3, 4, 5, and so on. And that means the higher the object count, the higher the probability that the XCAM will use this object type. So we can increase the count a little bit more, and we increase this count also a little bit, and that's okay. And now we start the multibrush. And as you can see, the result looks different because we have another object mix now, depending on the object count. In connection to the dynamic object pool, it makes really sense to have also favorites with different object types. So normally you create a favorite with all the trees, then you have a favorite maybe with all the bushes, another favorite with all the stones. But for this function it's a good idea to have a mix of all these different object types. And I have already created such a mixed favorite, and this favorite is called Nice Forest Mix 1. And if we have a closer look to this favorite, then we can find all the different object types like trees, bushes, and also one stone type. And if you press this button S, then you have the possibility to save all the object types from this favorite with one step into the dynamic object pool. So press this button and then you can see all the list entries are marked green, and you can immediately start with the work. And if you press this button again, then the dynamic object pool is again cleared. And please note at this point, if you press this button, then by default the object count is set to 1 for each object type. So, and then press O to start the multibrush. Maybe change the minimum object distance a little bit. I'll try 4 meters. And then start to create some objects. And as you can see, all the different object types are part of the current brush session. Stones, bushes, and also the trees. And that's really cool. And remember the function, press and hold down the left Alt key to delete some objects. If you don't like the mix for the big trees, we have to increase the brush size a little bit. Okay, and if you want to change the mix a little bit, maybe we don't want to use this tree, then press the minus button here, and then this object type is no longer part of the dynamic object pool. And then it looks again a little bit different. And at the end, maybe another nice example with this favorite. Press S, press O, and here we go.